What is going on, world? It's your man DH. We are back right here on Win or Lose Radio. So look, I got one of my favorite guys here on the line from 106.7 The Fan and the voice of George Mason basketball. I got my guy Bill Rohland. Bill, how you doing, man?
Hey, DH, nice to be on with you tonight. What's going on?
Hey, man, I'm good, man. I just need some clarification about this RG3 situation, man. I know you being in the media and you talk about this every day. I know it's been crazy for you. It's just like a never-ending news cycle, man.
Yeah, you're asking for clarification. I'm not sure whoever you bring up will be able to give you clarification necessarily, but yeah, what a wild 3 or 4 days, I guess. Really, this started, well, probably even longer than that. I guess you have to go back to the Lions preseason game when they were talking about, during the game, Griffin had cleared his, concussion test. Joe Theismann set it up in the booth, and then we learned later that information had come from Clinton Portis. Who knows who he was talking to down the sideline, and it just kind of ballooned from there. And then you get the press conference from Jay Gruden today, and he basically said, well, no, it didn't have anything to do with the injury. That Cousins had just outplayed Griffin during during OTAs and training camp and everything else. But it begs the question, if that was the case, had Griffin been cleared, what would they have done on Saturday? I mean, who knows? What if Griffin had gone out there and let a couple of touchdowns drop? I mean, it just the way this all went down, I'm not sure that anybody still really grasps exactly what happened.
It definitely feels like this is something that they have just been waiting for a reason to put Cousins in. Because I told you, man, back in the day, I just felt like they didn't want RG3 to play quarterback. And for whatever reason, the only way he was going to be able to bypass that notion in their minds is by coming out and performing, and he hasn't done it. So I guess it was convenient, that he had a concussion, in air quotes, and now he's pretty much out the picture.
Yeah, it certainly seems that way. Although again, they all deny that was the case. That this is something that has been kind of bubbling up over the past months. If you listen to Jay Gruden, and then again today, he said that this was a decision that the reason that they named Robert the starter all the way back in February is because they didn't want to have the constant chatter of who's your quarterback. But in reality, they had this competition, quote unquote, going on the whole time. And I don't know how genuine that is. I mean, that seems a little hokey to me, but it certainly was interesting to listen to him talk about how, look, Kirk Cousins, he said, is our starter for 2015. He basically said that, we're going to give him the whole year. And he didn't want him looking over his shoulder every time he threw a pick or an incomplete pass. I mean, we'll see. I still maintain, and I've said this on the air, and people think I'm nuts, I still maintain he'd rather use Colt McCoy than any of them.
Hey, I agree with that.
Yeah, because he didn't go back to Cousins last year when he got benched at halftime. And I don't remember which game it was, the Tennessee, whatever game it was. Mm-hmm. Cousins got benched. There was an opportunity to bring him back later in the year, and they didn't do it. He went to McCoy twice, and then when McCoy hurt his neck and couldn't go back in, they went back to Griffin. Again, remember that Dallas game was the last game of the season where they got swamped. They never went back to Cousins, which leads me to believe that I think he'd rather have Colt. But they're going to roll with Cousins for right now and see what they get from him. And you know what? By next year at this time, all three of these guys may be gone.
I agree. I mean, I was watching a couple things today, and I've heard a lot of analysts say that, they don't feel like the quarterback to do what the Redskins want to do is on the roster. And I agree. I mean, I really think by going with Cousins right now, it may be a means to an end, to kind of usher in the new era, per se. But I don't think they have a quarterback on their roster right now that can do what they need him to do.
Yeah, I mean, if you listen to Mike Shanahan, and I don't know how much people, Redskins fans, trust Mike Shanahan after what went down here. Look, he still thinks, and he told Dan Hellie this today from the NFL Network. Mm-hmm. He told our own Grant Paulson this. He still believes that Cousins is going to be a top 10 quarterback in this league, and that you can win and go to the playoffs and go deep in the playoffs with Cousins at quarterback. To me, it's way too early right. to anoint that on Cousins, because let's be honest, he's won exactly one game that he started and finished, and that was Cleveland in 2012.
One game.
One game that he started and finished the entire game, one game that they've won.
Hey, man, you know those guys work with it on the daily, they see it. But I guess Mike Shanahan just doesn't want to be wrong. Maybe that's what it is.
It could be.
He did draft him, in the 4th round, and I guess he want to feel like, one of his picks, will come out. I definitely think that's the pick that he wanted in the first place. I really think, because like they said previously, that was too much to give up for a quarterback, at the 2nd pick. I really don't think they want to do that, but, you got management over top, you telling you what to do. I mean, I know that can be difficult. So I definitely believe that, Cousins is the guy he wants. But what do you think about this whole concussion thing or lack thereof, man? Like, how are you a doctor, a medical professional? Like, somebody is just leaving out information. I promise you, when they got this stuff, there was no adult in the room because they had to know that it was going to be a storm on the back end of that. What you think?
Yeah, you know what, DH? The weird thing about it is I think they got I think the Redskins may have jumped the gun. I don't think they did anything nefarious in this. I don't think anybody went back and changed anything so that Griffin couldn't play Saturday in Baltimore. I think they were given a verbal on Thursday that it looks like everything's going to be okay, and instead of waiting to see it written down and everything else, they went ahead and said, yeah, it looks like Griffin's going to be cleared to go on Saturday. Everything's A-okay. And then the doctor looked at it more, or another doctor looked at it more and said, wait a minute, I don't like what I'm seeing. And then when the written notification came, it was like, oh, whoops. No, he's not actually cleared. And it was just a bad job by them. It was almost like, you go and go on a job interview and verbally they give you the offer and they say, hey, we're going to pay you X amount of dollars or you're going to get X amount of vacation time. But the guy that's telling you that really doesn't have the final authority. Right. And then they give you your written contract and you go, well, wait a minute, this is $5,000 less and 1 week less of vacation. What happened? And you go, well, our main boss actually said we couldn't give you that offer, so here's the new one. It's sort of like that where you never want to go with what, the verbal agreement or anything else. Wait till it's down on paper before you make the announcement. But they butchered this anyway because Griffin apparently didn't even know he wasn't cleared until they put out the press release Friday night. Why wouldn't that be your first call? Why are you leaving him out to dry? When all of a sudden he's probably getting texts and calls from people in the media going, hey, you're not cleared. What happened? Here's this press release. He probably had no idea. And then he's as confused as anybody else.
It's crazy, man, because Bill, every day something else comes out, and it just makes us look so dysfunctional, man. Like I feel like we've catapulted the Raiders in Cleveland, and it's just every day is something. And this is national news. This is not just with you guys on the Fan or not here on Win or Lose Radio. It is on ESPN, First Take, Sports Center. This is what they're talking about. And I mean, when is it over, Bill? When is it over?
You know what? It's over when they start winning. I mean, honestly, that's what it's going to have to be. And not winning one division title in 16 years like they did in 2012. It has to be a consistent type of winning, or just you get the idea. Even if this year they go 6-10, if this is the end of the drama, if they can go through the season, whether Griffin's on the bench as a backup, whether he's second or third string, and they haven't said which he would be, or even if they just cut bait and move on from him, as long as they have a drama-free season, no matter how it goes, and then can go into the off-season, and they function like every other NFL franchise, that's when it'll start feeling like they've turned the corner. But until then, if there's all the backstabbing, if there's all the he said, she said, if they cut Griffin and then he comes and runs his mouth, it's not going to go away, because there are bodies still buried or hidden in the closet somewhere that people haven't opened up and found yet. And if it ever came out, I'm sure it would make the organization look even worse than it does now. They just got to hope that nobody ever digs up that grave or opens up that closet.
Man, I really hope they don't. But speaking of graves, do you think the Nats have buried themselves this season, man?
Yeah, you know what? I was watching the game here before I came out with you guys, and they got a cheap early run tonight in St. Louis. This, to me, I know there'll still be 30 games left in the season, and people say, oh, it's a long time, but the Mets don't look like they're going to lose anytime soon because they get to play Philly, and they're up on them 3-0 right now tonight, so they're going to probably win unless they blow this thing in the ninth inning. The Nats almost have to take 2 out of 3 from St. Louis, who's the best team in baseball right now. If they drop 2 of 3 and they end up 6.5 games back, or if the Mets sweep the Phillies and it's 7.5 back, I don't know how you make up 7.5 in a month. I mean, I guess it's possible. We've seen it happen to other teams before, but nothing I've seen from this team over the last month gives me the idea that they can rip off a 17-3 run over 20 games. And I mean, they may be to the point by the time they play the Mets next week that it may not even matter. Even if they swept them, they still may end up being 4 or 5 games back with, at that point, 15 to play. They're in a deep hole. This series with St. Louis is gigantic for them to hang around in September.
Would you say it's been pretty much injuries this season? Because, I mean, at the beginning of the season, we're looking promising with this addition of Max Scherzer. We look like, we finally got a lineup of guys who can hit, who can play defense, and of course, pitch well. You think it's pretty much just injuries that spelled it out for us?
Yeah, I mean, Dave, you and I have talked about this a ton, whether it's, on Twitter or you calling into my show. I mean, we talked about this a lot. It was a perfect storm of everything. It was, guys getting hurt. It was guys who had very good years last year, not performing at all. And you can look at Ian Desmond, and he's been great for the last, 2 to 3 weeks. But where was he in May and June and July when they were struggling? He was batting, 210. You don't get anything from Jason Worth here until the last, 10 games or so that he's finally been playing well. And the pitching, which carried them at the beginning of the year, all of a sudden Scherzer can't win anymore. Strasburg can't stay healthy. Gio Gonzalez is up and down. They just never got, save for 1 month in May when they got hot and went something like 19-8 or whatever it was. They never rolled out consistency time after time after time, whether it was 2 or 3 times through the rotation and everybody's pitching well, or the lineup was never healthy. We've had 2 games, and that's all they'll have this year because Denard Span is out for the year now. They had 2 games all season where they had what they wanted and expected their lineup to be coming out of spring training. They played together twice this year. That's a huge deal.
That's crazy, man. It's continuity, man. And guys going down with Span going down, guys just not available, and that's tough, man. You can't build a team like that, if guys are going down. And they're talking, Span is now out for the rest of the season, and I even saw you tweet this that that you definitely wouldn't bring him back, at the rate he's going to cost, and for the injury issues that he has, man. What are some other people we can sign to kind of bring in and kind of complete it and right the ship so we can be in the playoff position next year, man?
Yeah, you know what? That's the interesting thing, and I think this is going to be, especially if they end up not making the playoffs, there's going to be a ton of pressure on Mike Rizzo to get this team back into the playoff hunt and win the division next year. And maybe it's just as simple as guys being healthy again. I mean, we'll find out in 2016, but I don't know that there's any one particular big money free agent that they'll necessarily go out and get. They'll probably let Ian Desmond walk, which I recommend that because I don't want to pay the guy $17-18 million, which is what he wants over the next 5-6 years.
Right.
Because he only hits for like 2 months out of the season, and it's only going to get worse the older he gets. So Trey Turner is probably going to be your starting shortstop at the beginning of next year. Or if they start him at second and use, Escobar or Danny Espinosa at short, whatever it may be, he'll be in your lineup next year. With no Denard Span, Michael Taylor takes over in center field. They're going to rely on a lot of young guys. Jordan Zimmerman's probably not going to be back.
Right.
I would imagine Joe Ross, Tanner Roark will fill out the rotation along with, Strasburg and Max Scherzer and Gio Gonzalez. But you also need to keep an eye on the kid down the minors and Lucas Giolito. He's been very good. Every time they move him up a level, he performs. Maybe he's in the mix to be a starter. If not coming out of 2016, he's the first guy up when they have a starter have to miss, because again, very rarely do you go through an entire season where your 5 starters make every single start. So I imagine we may see Giolito at some point, but I don't know that they go out and sign a big time free agent. They may bring in some guys to fill out the bench, if they want to strengthen their bench a little bit. But I don't imagine, unless something crazy happens, that they're going to go sign this big-time free agent, because right now they pretty much got every position filled, unless they just decide they can't trust Jason Worth and want to spend even more money on left field, where he's already cost them $21 million.
Right. I mean, it's crazy, man, because like you said, at the beginning of the season, Bryce Harper was, high up, saying, where's my ring? And I mean, on paper, I mean, they definitely look like, a 100+ win team, man, that definitely look like they could go out and possibly make it to the World Series, you know what I mean? And now it's just tough. It's look like we just bringing up the rear, guys barely manufacturing runs, people just going down, and it sucks to see, man, especially when you have teams with promise, man, and it's terrible to see. And I hope we can rebound from that and try to, be better next season, man. I really do.
Well, that's the thing is, I mean, the nice thing about it, and right now it's very frustrating if you're a Nats fan, obviously, because you expected them to, to not be just 3 games over 500 at this point. But once you get to the off season and you can digest it, and you start looking to next year and everything else, you're going to look at Bryce Harper. Probably, if he doesn't win the MVP, which I think right now he will, doesn't have a huge slump in September, he's probably going to be the MVP. He's 22, and they've got him for at least the next 3 or 4 seasons. I mean, that's a guy you're going to plug in the middle of your lineup, and you're going to have him for the next few years, and he's only going to get better. You can build off of that. And Anthony Rendon, when he's healthy, he's starting to hit now. You see the last week, he's getting back into a groove.
Yeah.
Those 2 guys, whether you bat them 2-3 or 3-4 or whatever it is, there are a lot of teams in Major League Baseball that would love to have those 2 guys in the middle of the lineup, and the Nats are going to have them for the next few seasons at least. So still have the opportunity to be really good for the next few years. It's not like the window shuts after this year. It'll still be wide open. They just have to go out and do it.
Man, Bill, before we get out of here, man, I got to get your take on this really quick, man. So now that this whole Cousins thing has taken to light, how many wins you think the Redskins will get, man? Being real.
You know what? I said at DH, I said about, I guess it's been now almost a month, that we did back before training camp started, we did the Redskins season preview show. Me and 040 and Brian McNally all did it the one night. And I even said then, and this was when I didn't even trust that Robert Griffin was going to be the starter, or, at least a competent starter. I look at their schedule. I don't trust the Jets. I don't trust Buffalo. I don't trust Tampa Bay. I mean, I'm going through their schedule. I think they can still go 6-10, 7-9. I don't see anybody other than running into like the Patriots are probably going to have their way with Washington.
Right.
I think they'll probably struggle down at Dallas, but we've seen them win there before. They beat them there last year with Colt McCoy as the quarterback. So I think 6-7 is probably the high water mark. I don't think they'll get beyond that, but it would not shock me if they go 6-10, 7-9 this year.
The NFL season, man, nothing shocks anybody because anything can happen, man. Anything can happen. Bill, I appreciate you for coming on the show, man. Win or Lose Radio. And Bill, you always have a home here, man. Anytime you want to come on, man, it's all for you, man.
Hey, man, you got the number. You can hit me up anytime. I'd love to come on with you guys. It's always a pleasure. So keep doing what you're doing, and we'll catch up during the NFL season.
All right, Bill. Appreciate it, man. Guys, that's Bill Rohland. You can follow him on Twitter at Bill Rohland, the voice of George Mason basketball, and 106.7 The Fan DC. There he goes. Man, look, I'm telling you, this is where we go. We get it in right here, man. Every week is always somebody big. We have him here, and listen, sit tight. We're going to come back on the flip side. Got a lot of topics to get into, so we wrap the show up, but it's going to be more right here on winorloseradio.com.